Hi, guys, and welcome back to the Devine podcast. I know it's been a while since I've been on here, and I just kind of want to tell you guys what's going on, what to expect with the podcast, and everything that you've come to know and love with the Divine Witch, including future interviews. So, first and foremost, where the fuck have I been? As you guys know, I started this podcast a while back. I wanted to feature some of the people that I've known and had the ability to meet within the pagan community. And I've shared quite a bit of people so far, but I still got some down the pipe, so to speak, that I would love to share with you guys. And, as we go in with this podcast, I'm going to tell you some of the people that I'm going to have. We're going to have some return guests as well. And yeah, let's get started. So, where have I been? So, as you guys know, one of our biggest events is Witch in the Woods. If you don't know what it is, go check our website, Facebook, YouTube, or just stay tuned because I'm going to be talking about it all the way up until August of 2023 when we have our annual Witch in the Woods event. And ever since then, um, or actually, let's start before then. So, before Witch in the Woods 2022, there was a lot of things that I was trying to work on to get ready for the event, like we do every year. And we had quite a number of people to help. And as we slowly got closer and closer to the event, life happens. And we've lost a few people due to medical reasons or family issues, or just realizing that they can't meet the requirements that it takes to have events like Witch in the Woods. And so that added a lot of pressure to the event this year and to me. And if you know me, I plan far ahead, but also, there's so many lists to check and to make sure everything looks right, especially when you're doing a lot of promotion online like I do. So there's a lot to do. And I do have a great team, but we are few. We are not of many at this point, but we are growing as our community grows. And so that was a thing. And that's kind of contributed to it as well. And then, I have kids. So getting ready for school and all the things, prepping for that, prepping for holidays, winter, inflation, all the things that we all think about, in our lives. And then, birthdays and things like that that we do on the side, not including, being out there in public and rituals and stuff like that. And also around this time, I was working on a business, Crystal Turtle Collections, which I am no longer a part of. So I do want to start out with saying that. Now, that's pretty much where I was headspace wise before Witch in the Woods. Witch in the Woods, in my opinion, it went great. We had a lot of positive feedback. We did have a few suggestions from presenters to just people who were coming, who seen the event, what their thoughts were. And we've put that in our minds and we're using some of it to actually go into next year. During Witch in the Woods, I had got probably a minimum of sleep, probably about like maybe 4 or 5 hours of sleep within 48 hours. And realistically, probably a little bit longer than that. Between everything going on prior, the event, stressing about it, trying to run a booth and run the Divine Witch stuff at the same time, which I realized, probably wasn't the best idea, but it was one that I needed to do at the time. So it is what it is. But next year, I won't be focusing on a booth. I'll be focusing on the event solely. So that shouldn't be an issue. But as we got out of Witch in the Woods, there was a couple weeks of just craziness. And then in September, seasonal depression really started to hit. And it was just like around the fall time is normally when I started getting myself for what I call the descent of Hecate, which is where I take that descent with her, as she does every year with Persephone, to the underworld. And the way that I do that is revalue, I revise and look over my life. What could I do different? What have I not done? What emotions have I not allowed myself to experience fully? And then, thinking about the holidays on top of that, it just added stress. And then me and my business partner had a falling out. So that added on to it. There was a couple of events I had to back out of um, for different reasons. The non-com one I had to back out of because I just wasn't in the right headspace. And I honestly, it was a good thing because from what I heard, it wasn't exactly what I thought it was going to be anyway. So it was no harm, no foul. Um, then as we went on, had about a month, thought I was doing good, felt like I was getting back to myself again. And then it hit harder for me. And this is just me being transparent with you guys who've watched me, followed my journey, who are new and just listening. So, I started wanting to do this podcast and go more into the mental health. That's when you started seeing videos with Meg, me asking various questions and stuff like that. Because during that time, I was battling with myself as well. And I know a lot of other people have been battling with it for different reasons. So it was one of those things where I felt like I'm going through it. I know other people are going through it. Let's do something. So we did the whole podcast with Meg. Then there was DPC event I couldn't do because my car wouldn't allow me to Baja through a field to get there and set up things that I needed to set up, which that right there, that really hit me hard. Just for the reason being, I still had the business partner and I was the one doing the road shows and they were working on the weekends. So it's not like they could step in and do it. They had most of the merch. So the crafter that I was working with, I couldn't give them even merch to take with them for the show. But it really hit me hard because I sat there and I felt like I failed. I felt like I failed not only myself, I felt like I failed the business. The person that, I was partnering with, I felt like I was failing them. And it was one of those decisions like, do I fuck up my car more? Or do I cancel it and just deal with, okay, this didn't work? And that's what I did. The following week, we had another event, which we attended, which was the Witches Ball. Went off amazing. If you've never been, check out Cincinnati Witches Ball. The only thing I didn't really like about it is having vendors split up instead of having all your vendors in one area. Because then if most people are upstairs and there's vendors up there, obviously they're going to get more sales than the vendors downstairs because most of the action is upstairs. You know what I mean? So like that would be the only criticism I think I have with it. And mostly for the reason being, I see it from two sides of a coin. And after that event, my knee decided to fuck up for about a week and a half. So that really sucked. And once again, I'm just being transparent of where I've been, what's been going on with me, um, and it's been a thing. And I didn't have a plan to do a podcast today or to put one up, but as I'm starting to slowly come out of this depression I'm in, I'm not fully there, and I can admit that. It's not easy to admit, but I also know that there's other people in my community going through the same thing. And I seen a post today where somebody was like, I took some of my posts down because I'm dealing with depression. And I know it's not what everybody wants to see. And that resonated so fucking hard with me today to a point where I wanted to get on here. I wanted to talk about it It's one of the reasons, with Megan or Meg, however she wishes to go by, um, I brought it up because, with the Divine Witch, I've always talked about mental health in some aspect because you have to, especially when you're working with spirits, deities, you know, and not everybody's the same. So, trying to figure out what's a hallucination versus what's actually what you're seeing, what you're feeling versus what you think, learning how to read the energy in the room and within yourself. And these are things that go hand in hand when it comes to spirituality. Like, you're not going to go out there and cast a spell when you're depressed for happiness because at that moment you're not happy. You want to cast that spell of happiness when you have that energy of happiness to continue in your life when you're going through moments of sadness. And when I seen that, I was just like, we need to have more discussion. Like, we talk so much about the physical ramifications of life and how to alter it with spell work or mantras or chants or meditation, but we never really truly talk about the mental mindset, the knowing the differences, knowing one's own energy, and ways to incorporate it not only within our practice but within ourselves of the cycles we notice. Because life is about cycles. You have your good, your bad. You have, every year you go through a cycle, from the day that you were born till the next year when that day comes up, which is a birthday. It's a full cycle. It's your full life cycle. And I know people who revise their life at that time. But it sucks seeing the reality of we pushed so much about good manifestation, good energy, good light, because that's what we want to focus on and that's what we're trying to manifest in our life. But at the same time, we don't want to acknowledge the bad part, the darkness, the sadness, that feeling of like you're isolated, alone, and you're just floating in a sea and you're looking for your destination and you don't know what direction to go in. So you're just floating along. And it's like friends and family, they help distract you, which is an equivalent of finding like something that's floating and being able to sit there for a second, take a breath. But as soon as that interaction's over, you're back to searching again. And the more I thought about that during my depression, it really correlated with life. We're all just kind of floating around seeing where it is that we want to go. We have an idea in our mind, but we don't know the exact steps it's going to take for us to get there. And sometimes as you're floating, something pulls you down and it's like you can't figure it out. You don't know what it is. Is it my mind? Is it my body? Is it in my environment? Like, where is this tether cord coming from that's keeping me in the same spot? And it's hard to get through that when you can't freely acknowledge how you feel in the moment. I don't know how many videos I've seen of people saying, when someone asks me how I'm doing, I just say fine, when in reality, I don't know how I'm feeling. And, in the age of where we've come so far with mental health and expression, and to the point to where companies are realizing, we're losing people because people are not robots, they're not drones. They go through emotions, things happen in life, like having that ability, like even at a corporate level, to recognize mental health. But yet, when it comes into a spiritual context, we don't take the time to dissect and really express in the moment. It either becomes a contest of, well, that sucks. I'm sorry you're going through that. I've been going through this. And at some point, you just feel like, I just need someone just to listen. And that comes with communication. And, over the years, communication is one of the things that, we talk about, whether it's manifesting or, mindsets of like, if you put it out there, that's what you get. But when you're in the moment of something that's dark, you can't really necessarily see the light. You can't take yourself back a little bit when you feel like you're being pounded into the dirt. And what can we do to change that in our communities? I set up a space a couple years ago called Pagan Support Group for this reason, because I realized back then, as I do now, like, you need a safe space where you can go, where you don't have to worry about who's on the other side, what they're going to say. And it's almost like the more I sit and I've thought about it, even in this year, that's one thing I admire about Catholicism, is the ability to go in a box, be able to speak to another human being, and to have them just to listen. You don't have to worry about them seeing you, being judged, feeling like you got their eyes on you. They're just there to listen and to give maybe some advice and a prayer or two to help you go on. And I really do think that's something that, it doesn't have to be the exact same, but I do feel like having something like that in our community where we can have that, not fear of being doxxed or come after, or, just a burden on to friends or family, where you can go, you can get help, and you can have a support system. And I'm not by any means saying the pagan support group I got is that, because it's not, because you're using your Facebook. But I would like to see something like that. Whether it be you can send an email, whether it be you can set up a private time. Because one of the things, that I've noticed, like, we get a lot of questions when you're either a priest or a priestess or a group leader about, like, hey, I'm having this happen in my home, or I feel a calling to this, but I don't know who it is. But why aren't we still using those resources for mental health as well? Sometimes, relationship counseling is a thing. People don't think about pagan clergy doing that, but they do. Relationship building, or just someone to listen. There is a such thing as a spiritual counselor, and it's not only about, the work or the practice or the faith. Sometimes it's about having someone who you trust and respect and can go to and cannot feel judged, and just to listen to you. And I know there's a fear associated with it of being spoken, or, maybe they don't got time for me, or they do so much, they're busy and all that. But realistically, it's part of the path. Even in a small coven, you know what I mean? Like a phone tree. Of like, hey, or like when you're together, have that moment where you're like, okay, let's throw down the bullshit. This is what's really going on in my life, and just let them speak. Let them talk. You don't have to offer advice unless they ask for it, and build from there. Because for so often we like to say things amongst our groups, but we don't take the time to build a community like we should. And when we're building a community and when we're working with our community, it's more than just the glitz and the glamour of a ritual. It's much deeper. And that's what I'm going to work on this year with myself and with those around me, which has kind of brought me into the last 6 months. I got the Divine Witch and I love it. I've got my coven and I love them. But I feel like I'm lacking a sisterhood when it comes to working with Hecate. And most would say, well, why does it have to be a sisterhood? Because that's what I need in my life. I need a space where I have that loving, nurturing female energy that's both strong and weak and powerful, but gentle at the same time. And, there's a lot of Hecateans, a lot of devotees, a lot of new people in it. It's one of the main reasons people have found my channel is because of Hecate or Hecate, whatever you want to say it, by the way. We're going to get into that eventually. Pronunciation and variations and stuff, but not today. And so it's something I'm putting around in my area. I'm not looking to start like, let's do events here and there, or, make it so where it's complete dedication where you have to do everything like this or that. Just a space where women can get together. They can work through the crossroad moments. They can help build each other up. When one sister needs something, someone within that sisterhood helps. Also, a place to look at Hecate and do something good. It doesn't mean that we have to do public display rituals or have rituals every full moon, but something to show those out there who are working in the community. There is a community within our community that follows Hecate. We all can come together and we can work together. We can help you no matter where you're at. And I kind of want to do that. So that's something that is going to be my personal project that I want to work on. And whether it's done virtually or in person, we'll see where it takes us. But it's not something that I'm going to force or push. I'm just putting it out there into the universe, and whoever she sends our way, we'll help as much as we can. We'll learn from each other, share experiences, and be able to give information from a personal perspective of a practitioner or a devotee to be able to help guide and teach. Because that's one of the things that, I can say honestly when it comes to working with Hecate. It's not only learning about, like, for me, I'm Hellenistic. That's my path. That's what I love. I love everything from the food to the art to the architecture to the rituals to the symbolism to the mythology. I love it all. And it has its flaws and its fuck ups, but it's something I can honestly say that even since I was a kid, I found joy and like glee and but it's not the only way. It's not the only path. And it's just something I want to do. So if you want to know the journey, follow me on the Devine Witch. Eventually I will be going public with it. Right now I'm just kind of doing it on my own page with the group of people that I know, and we'll see where it goes. I'm not starting anything until 2023. We still got a month and a half left of 2022 to get through. But I did want to talk about it. And by talking about, Greek gods and, working with them from a personal perspective, next month I will be releasing, actually in the beginning of the month, is a interview with Estrella Taylor. Estrella Taylor. See, I get so excited when I go to think about this that it just all kind of comes together. But also, the book that we're going to be talking about is a collaboration between her and Jason Mankey. And I've read some of his, and I've definitely read hers because, I'm going to have her here on the podcast. And the book is called Modern Witchcraft with the Greek Gods. And I can't tell you what's all going to be in it. I can just tell you what I know, what I've read, and what I've been asked to do. And at some point, I was asked to write information on Hades. Because Hades is one of those Greek gods that most people do not work with, one, because of lack of knowledge, lack of information, and fear. And so I have decided, yeah, I'll do it. And I'm in the book. So like that's exciting. And I can't wait to get my copy. Um, and to be able to watch it get promoted and to be able to dive into the book and look at all the different people who've put their voice into it and see what practices or what things correlate with who that I never thought it would. You know what I mean? Like when it comes to the Greek pantheon in Ohio, working in spiritual context, there's not a lot of public rituals. There's not a lot of gatherings, not a lot of groups that focus on it. And even though I call the Divine Witch eclectic because we welcome anybody, and I'm like I said, with Hecate, the whole learning thing, it's you can be in one's, path, but it doesn't mean that you're not going to get thrown something about African traditions or something thrown about North American, traditions. Like you're going to get thrown in all these different directions when you work with her. And you don't know why at first, and then a couple months down the road, you need what you were learning, and it makes sense. So that was the thought that I was trying to make earlier, and then as I got into a little tangent, I forgot. Now here we are, full circle. But I'm really excited for the book. I'm really excited to have them on the podcast and talk about it and for you guys to hear about it. We will be doing a video so that way you'll see it in video form as well. And it's just not the beautiful Divine Witch logo and me sitting here talking, and I'm excited about it. Me and Meg has been wanting to get out here and do more videos with me for the Divine Witch and the podcast. And I want to feature that and go more into depth into some of the things that we talked about at the original podcast and see where it takes us. Because that's the kind of structure I want to set for this. And I want to give everybody a voice. Because it's not just the Divine Witch show in Ohio. It's everybody. From Ohio Valley Pagan Society, Butler County Pagan Gatherings, to all the other groups that are around. Runestone Heathens, Triple Cups, I think is what it's called, or something with cups. I know there's cups. Don't judge me, and if you're part of that group, I'm sorry. I know there's cups. That's part of the ADHD that I have, where part of the stuff sticks and part of it doesn't, and that's another thing that makes it hard sometimes in the community. And also was part of the issue that I dealt when it came to the depression, because it's like, for me, I can have 30 tabs open, or at least that's what it feels like. It's like having 30 tabs, and then I know I'm going to complete all those tabs, but it's not going to be the exact right order. And sometimes people will come to events and they'll be like, why is it like this? Or why did you do this? And, it's a constant thing. And it's like, because that's how my brain works. And that's how it makes sense to me. And that's how I structured it. So it's not like I'm sitting here going, let's feed the chaos, even though I am a chaos queen and I do love it. But it's more because that's how my mind works. And it's one of the things that I want to get on here with Meg and with a few others and talk about. When we talk about spirituality, some have an elitist mindset of, well, you got to do it this way and it has to be done this way. But not all brains work the same way. Not all people learn how to do the things the same way. And yet we wonder why so many people are in the closet when we're putting up restrictions and goalposts like, oh, if you can't meet this requirement, you're nothing. And a lot of people in paganism, spirituality, whatever the hell you want to call it, religion in general, have that mentality of, if you can't fit in like most people or do things like most of us do, then you're worthless. And that's not true. And I see people second guess themselves all the time. And I've done it to myself, and I still do it. And there's a difference between being helpful and just fueling someone's self-hatred. And some people in the community need to learn that. including myself. Because sometimes it's hard to see from another person's perspective when your mind works a certain way and theirs works another. And it's just how it is. So maybe we can have more of this type of discussions and, express it. Not every ritual is going to be Reconstructionism. Not every ritual that you see is going to have an elaborate show. But it's not so much the theatrics of a ritual that makes a ritual. It's the energy and the people in the ritual that make the ritual. And everybody's got an opinion. Everybody's got a thought. And it's hard sometimes. Trying to appease everybody will never happen. So if that's what you're looking for, and this is my advice, if you're looking for that in your life, in your spirituality, in your job, in your love life, you're never going to get what you're looking for. Because there's always going to be something more. And you are you. Doesn't mean you shouldn't try to grow, get rid of bad habits or things that you feel have a negative impact on your life. But what it does mean is knowing who you are, knowing what you bring to the table, being able to look yourself in the mirror and be like, okay, this is something I need to work on versus this is something I need to push back to the side because I don't need to work on it. I've always said, never trust a person that ever says that they have nothing to work on, because we all do. Whether it's mental, physical, spiritual, or sometimes all three. There is not a time in anybody's life where you have everything figured out, where everything is perfect and there's no more room to grow. That's why we have this life. So we can make those mistakes. We can learn from the process. We can grow. We can change our thoughts. We can make amends. We can share our frustrations. But it doesn't mean that we can't work together. And communities have their rips and their tears. But as long as the fabric that sews it all together stays intact, then there's still room to grow, fix, patch up, expand, change, evolve, redo, whatever you wish to call it. And that's what I would like to do. And by doing that, for me, that is going down to one event a year for Witch in the Woods. Because for years, I've tried to keep up with other groups. I've tried to think of new fun things that I would enjoy. And realistically, I feel like I not wasted because I met a lot of good people. So it's not my time that I wasted. It's the resources that I had to me that I could use for someone else, that I could use to help someone else grow what they want. Or just to be a helping hand to help feed or clothe someone. And I'd rather focus on one thing than try to focus on 30 and try to make 30 all as amazing as the next. And then either numbers don't match, interests don't match, or by the end of it, I'm not enjoying it. I'm not having the joy of having that because I feel like it wasn't good enough, or I could have done more, or maybe if I would have done something different or watched my time a certain way, you know what I mean? Like, you shouldn't have to think about that, but it is something that does. And I feel like by doing one big event, It allows me to have more resources for that event than having to spread it out, dig into my pocket, pull a couple grand out or more to do an event. Because we do get funding, but it's very little. I don't try to push a bunch of funding. I don't set memberships for the Divine Witch, because one of the things that always got me is if I can't afford something or if my voice can't be heard, then I don't want to be a part of it. And I know there's other people out there that's like that, where you feel like, well, if I go, am I going to have enough? Am I going to be looked at? Am I going to be restricted? If I speak about my path, how's that going to make me feel? And that's why the Divine Witch is here, because we don't want to put that on anybody. It's about people meeting each other, and whether or not you come to another event or whatever, you had an experience and hopefully you enjoyed it. And that's the goal. So that's what we'll be doing. I've got a ritual planned. I want to do a torch lighting ceremony to start the event. One, because my goddess is a torchbearer and she helps guide, helps give light. And any event that I've ever had, I've always said those who are meant to be here will be here. And that's not me just saying that, it's me believing that. And it's because we all have different things in our lives that we make time for. But if we feel drawn to something that's pulled us in and we're like, I'm going to that, there's a reason for you to be there. And if you had plans to go, but something happened, it wasn't your time to go. And that's how I like to see life. Sometimes we want things and we want to do things, or we plan for things, but the timing is not right. So, hopefully the timing will be right next year. Hopefully we have, a good crowd like we did this year. And hopefully I can introduce for the first time at Witch in the Woods a Greek style ritual gathering, feast, and all to our community. Doesn't mean it's going to happen every year, but it does mean that if people enjoy it, they got questions, I can help point them in a direction as much as I can, or be at least a place for them. Hey, you can rest your bones here for a little bit, just like we do with any other pantheon or any other practice. Eventually I'd like to have it to where we have, 1 year, we focus on just Norse, or 1 year we focus on the Egyptian pantheon or the Greek or the Celtic, and make it to where each year you learn something new from something that you probably wouldn't. And that's what I want to grow it to. So if you want to help out, my email is down below. You can find it on YouTube. If you look up the Divine Witch, you can find me on Facebook, message me there. I always have a volunteer sign-up sheet always ready. And yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at. I do plan to bring back Brian Morgan. I do plan to get with my friend Mark and get him on here and share some of his knowledge from a Masonic background. So that way we can kind of get some of that into this as well and go from there. And if there's anybody who's listening to this or wants to come on here and talk about their path, or a path or a subject that they feel like isn't talked about, I'm open to that. And you can email me as well. Because I try to use my platform not only for myself, but for those around me. And if I can help you and I can learn something new, and so can other people, then why not do it? So with that being said, as always, remember this: no two witches, witch alike, and blessed be.